All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk. This is the show we cover the swag inside and out. And I am your tour guide around the swag. C Wells coming at you. And we are on our week 11 recap. So we are basically 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on yeah, like 2 weeks left in the regular season. So division races are almost coming to a close. Not as much chaos as I thought in terms of division races, but still a lot of up and down, topsy turvy swag action. This week was definitely a week of unexpected results. Um, a lot of teams who were underdogs came to play and made some of these games a little bit more interesting than you probably would have thought going into it. So this should be this was a really great week of swag football, and we got one more full week coming up next week, and that'll be the end of the regular season for most teams. And then we have like three games the following weekend. So no, I mean, well, my mouth is off. Um, we have basically another full week this upcoming week, and then there's the 23rd week, the weekend on the 23rd, and then the final week is the 30th Thanksgiving weekend. So anyway, regardless with all of that, man, y'all make sure y'all check out those socials. Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. We do have our week 12 pick'em contest link up. It will be there will be a pinned tweet on my Twitter account, and also it'll be links on my Facebook and Instagram, as well as in the description of this video. You can find that there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you already if you have. If you haven't, why don't you hit that button and become a part of the Swag Talk family. Um, Share the video, comment, thoughts, and hit that notification bell to be alerted to videos that we drop that aren't on our typical Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday schedule. Last Monday, I dropped a kind of like a update of the swag standings. I'll probably do that again this week. This probably will be the final week that I do it because I think unless something crazy happens, the divisional races will probably be sealed. We won't say that 100% certainty, but there's a good possibility that they'll be sealed by the time Monday comes around next week. So um, with that said, we'll drop one more of those, and if need be, we'll do one after the following. We'll do one after week 12. But right now, just plan for one on Monday, and that's that, man. Swag Smoke live on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Week 12 preview coming on Wednesday. Week 12 recap on Sunday, and we may go live on Saturday after the games. We'll see how that goes. So let's go ahead and jump into the action. First game, Alabama A&M gets a big victory on the road, bouncing back from their loss last week with a 52-24 victory over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Uh, Bulldogs really showed up and showed out in this game. The difference in this game was a 28-point second quarter. The Bulldogs scored the bulk of their points in the second and third quarter. They had 28 points in the second quarter and 14 in the third. So they really did their work in the middle two quarters. Pine Bluff couldn't really get going. They got off to a decent start, but couldn't really seal a deal from there, and it kind of just got away from them. Golden Lions did score first when Trey Glyph kicked a 32-yard field goal with 12:34 left in the first quarter. Keenan Hambrick would answer immediately for the Bulldogs with a 48-yard reception from Xavier Langford. That gave the Bulldogs the lead at 7-3. BJ Curry would get the Golden Lions back on top with a 14-yard touchdown run, capping an 80-yard drive that took 6 plays and 3:27 off the clock. Score was 10-7 at that point. And then the Bulldogs took over primarily behind Donovan Eaglin. He had a huge second quarter, scoring 3 touchdowns. He had a 17-yard run early in the second quarter, put the Bulldogs up 14-10. He also had a 18-yard run and a 2-yard run. In between those scores was a 85-yard pick six by Tavon Hardwick for the board for Pine Bluff, uh, which made the score 28-17. So that would be our halftime score. So Pine Bluff tried to hang around. Like I said, they got a pick six in the mix, but they just really couldn't. They couldn't get it going. Donovan Eaglin went wild, scoring touchdowns. and gave the Bulldogs a 35-17 lead going into the half. Coming out into the third, England will score two more touchdowns, both from 3 yards out, giving the Bulldogs a 49-17 lead going into the fourth. Barbosa will kick a field goal for the Bulldogs to make the score 52-17, and then Giovanni Gibson will get a 17-yard pass from Makai Higgins with 57 seconds left on the clock to make the final margin 52-17. Bulldogs 29 first downs, Golden Lions 17. Bulldogs had their way on the ground, 356 yards rushing, 65 carries, 5.5 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. 145 yards rushing for the Golden Lions, 27 carries, 1 touchdown, 5.4 yards per carry. 149 yards passing for Alabama A&M, 14 to 21, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. 172 yards passing for Pine Bluff, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 13 to 28. 505 yards for the Bulldogs, 86 plays, 5.9 yards per play, 1 fumble, and they lost it. And they had 1 penalty for 5 yards. 317 yards for the Golden Lions on 56 plays, 5.7 yards per play, 3 fumbles, and they lost 2 of them. So both teams had 3 turnovers in this game. 6 penalties for Pine Bluff for 55 yards. Bulldogs averaged 28 yards per punt, 44.5 yards per punt for the Golden Lions. A&M 7 of 14 on third down, 5 of 5 on fourth down, 7 of 8 in the red zone, no sacks for their defense. 1 of 8 on third down for Pine Bluff, 0 for 1 on fourth down, 3 of 3 in the red zone, and they also had no sacks. So this, like I said, this was a very efficient game for Alabama A&M's offense. They were able to basically do whatever they wanted, minus the turnovers, which have plagued them off and on all season. But they were, like I said, this was another big rushing game for them, just like they had against Bethune a few weeks ago. When they can run the ball like that, they can really be dangerous. Xavier Langford went 5 of 9 for 84 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Cornelius Brown, 9 of 12 for 65 yards. Higgins, 13 of 29 for 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Donovan Eaglin, 26 carries, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. Isaiah Nokawonu, 19 carries, 114 yards. So they had 200-yard rushers in this game. BJ Curry led Golden Lions with 10 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown. Hambert, 7 for 86 for A&M and 1 touchdown. Gibson, 6 for 86 and 1 touchdown for the Golden Lions. He went over 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards receiving in this game. Came in only needing 11, so he got his 1,000 yards on the season. Cortez Andrews led Alabama A&M with 7 tackles. Cedric Smith had 1.5 tackles for loss. Interception went to Cortez Andrews. Pine Bluff was led in tackles by Quentin Sterling with 14 tackles for loss. Cameron Coleman had 1.5, and interceptions went to Hardwick and Jones. And like I said, basically the Donovan Eaglin show in the second and third quarters is the difference in this game, and the fact that A&M was able to just do whatever they wanted on the ground, which really controlled this game for them, and gave them a big victory, a much needed bounce back victory, a good victory on the road against a Pine Bluff team that was undefeated at home in conference play. So they had been kind of starting to establish themselves at home, but this was a big victory for A&M as they try to close out the season on a strong note. Pine Bluff, tough loss. This is a team still trying to find their identity. They do have some weapons, especially in the passing game, but they are still kind of lacking depth on this team, and it shows in games like this. So we'll just have to see how they progress as they move into their final 2 games of the season. That takes us to our next game, which is probably obviously the longest game of the day, and probably one of the more surprising games of the day, minus one big game. And that's Southern and Bethune-Cookman. This was a 5 overtime game that Southern was able to survive 25-23. Bethune really played a really solid game. Didn't really do anything flashy, but they just were able to just keep Southern at arm's length for most of the game. This was a 3-0 game all the way to the fourth quarter. So Southern never really got themselves going. Bethune, had a couple drives here and there early. Then they kind of stalled out. Um, this was just one of those games where I don't know if Southern overlook these guys, which makes no sense. Or, Bethune, just because they've been playing better the last few weeks, I think they came in with a different mentality. Whereas earlier in the season, I think they were kind of just hoping to make some things happen. Now that they have had some success, I think they feel like they can win these games. And they played a really spirited game. And like I said, it was a 3-0 game all the way to the fourth quarter. Bethune didn't score until 12 seconds left in the first half when they got a 44-yard K Hector field goal to go up 3-0. And that would be our score until the 10-13 mark of the fourth quarter when Chandler Whitfield would catch a 18-yard pass from Jalen Woods, who came in for Zay T-Set. He had a rough game in this one. Kind of like with a young quarterback, you get those highs and lows. Where everything was all good last week, it was kind of the opposite this week. So we'll see if he can battle through that kind of adversity and get himself right. But Jalen Woods came in and was able to lead the offense to a fourth quarter touchdown, get Southern the lead immediately after a horrible. And when I say horrible, I don't mean by the referees. I mean by Southern, a horrible late hit out of bounds on a kick return. Bethune-Cookman was able to take that and drive down the field 70 yards to score a 12-yard touchdown pass from Cam Ransom to Joe Steen Clark. And that put the Wildcats back on top 10-7. With 3:13 left in the game, Josh Griffin will get a 27-yard field goal for Southern to tie the game up. That capped a 7-play, 79-yard drive that took 3:45 off the clock. And then both teams will have the ball a couple of times, didn't really do anything. And we go to overtime. In overtime, first overtime, Southern will get a 6-yard run from C.J. Russell to go up 17-10. Another bad penalty for Southern gives Bethune-Cookman the ball at the 13-yard line. And Dennis Palmer would score on a 13-yard run to tie the game up at 17. Second overtime, Kendrick Grimes would get a 25-yard touchdown run for Southern to put them up 23-17. They missed the 2-point conversion. And then they got this backwards. Bethune scored first in the second overtime when Thomas Nance had a 13-yard pass from Ransom. They missed the 2-point conversion. And then Kendrick Grimes will get a 25-yard run for Southern, and they will also miss the 2-point conversion. And that made the score 23-23. After two overtime periods with no scores, Southern would get a 2-point conversion from Kobe Dillon to put them up 25-23, and then Southern would tackle Cam Ransom for a loss on their final 2-point conversion attempt, and they would get the win there. So basically, like I said, this was a game. Depending on which way you approach it, it was either a good game or it wasn't. If you're a Bethune-Cookman, I think other than the result, this was a really good game for you. You came out on the road against a team who, in the standings, is sitting in a good spot, and you went toe to toe with this team, and you really held your own for the bulk of this game. If you're Southern, it's a little bit of a step back for you because this was a game where you kind of had a chance to really exert yourself and show where you are, but you kind of fell back into some things. But that fourth quarter overtime magic that Southern been weaving all season, it continues, and so they just constantly find a way. If the game is close, they find a way to pull it out. And that's what they continue to do. And I guess that's the identity of this team. So this is what they are. This is what they're going to be. Bethune-Cookman had 25 first down, Southern 22, 66 yards rushing for Bethune-Cookman, 34 carries, 1.9 yard per carry. They had one touchdown. Southern 233 on the ground, 46 carries, 5.1 yard per carry, and two touchdowns. 243 yards through the air for Bethune, 23 of 36, two touchdowns, no interceptions. 164 yards for Southern, 13 of 28, one touchdown, one interception. 309 yards for the Wildcats, 70 plays, 4.4 yards per play, no fumbles. Uh, four penalties for Southern for 25 yards. 397 for Southern. Total offense, 74 plays, 5.4 yards per play. They had one fumble and lost it. They had nine penalties for 84 yards. Um, that was another one of those bad penalty games for Southern. Almost every penalty that Southern had in this game cost them in some way, shape, or form. They had a holding call on either the first or second play of the game, which was a long run. Call that back. Um, Multiple offside penalties by the defense. The bulk of them gave Bethune first downs. Um, Personal fouls, late hits, and all that kind of stuff. Just was a rough game for them in terms of falling into that penalty issue after 2 good weeks of penalty play. Just kind of a step back here. 52.8 yard average for Bethune on 6 punts. 2 punts inside the 20. This guy, Anthony Frederic, the punter for Bethune, man, he was honestly the MVP for this team. He kept Southern pent back multiple times, including back-to-back punts in the fourth quarter. He did a really good job of getting that ball inside the 20. And Southern had a five punts for 34.8 yard average. Bethune 6 of 15 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down, 2 of 4 in the red zone. They had 2 sacks. Southern 6 of 14 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down, 3 of 4 in the red zone, and they had 4 sacks. Cam Ransom went 23 of 36 for Bethune, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 5 sacks. T-Set 8 of 18 for 111 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions, 2 sacks. Woods 5 of 10, 53 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, no sacks. Palmer had 19 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown for Bethune. This guy, man, I think he's really come on strong in these last few weeks. He's a young back. I think he's going to be a key factor for this offense moving forward in the future. Really a good runner. Was able to make some things happen for them. Kobe Dillon, 19 carries, 130 yards for Southern. Still no touchdowns yet for him, but still a very good game. Kendrick Rounds, 15 for 90, one touchdown. Russell had a touchdown as well. Thomas Nance had 6 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown for the Wildcats. Khalil Harris had 1 catch for 40 for Southern. Whitfield had 2 for 29 and a touchdown. Minor had 2 for 26. Kevin Washington Jr. had 9 tackles for the Wildcats. Dallas Corbett had 2 tackles for loss, and he also had 2 sacks. Interception went to Volmar. Southern was led in tackles by Vince Page with 11. He also had 1.5 tackles for loss. Kelby Givens led the team with 2.5 tackles for loss. He also had 1 sack, along with Davin Cotton with 1 sack, and Jelani Davis also had 1 sack. So this was a good spirited battle by Bethune Southern. They found a way to pull out another overtime game. So this is their third overtime game in 6 SWAC games that they played so far. 3 of them have gone to overtime. So they just are living. They living dangerously, but they finding ways to survive. We'll see how that magic continues for them moving forward. Next game we have is Jackson State taking on Mississippi Valley. First off, before we go into this game, definitely want to give condolences and rest in peace to Ryan Quinney from Alabama, from Mississippi Valley. He tragically passed away this weekend, and I know that's weighing heavy on the Valley family. So definitely want to send condolences out to them for that. And the game itself, Valley actually kind of came out and made a few things happen early, and actually they were able to take an early first half lead in this game, and before Jackson State really started to open it up. Jackson State had 3 field goals in the first half. From Basil, 1 from 23, 1 from 26, and 1 from 28. So all those could have been touchdowns if they were able to convert, but they all led to field goals. Valley got a Jacoby Thomas 12-yard pass from Tajarian Williams and a 1-yard run from Williams to take a 14-9 lead with 11:08 left in the in the second quarter. And then from then on, Jackson State would go on a run. They would get a touchdown from Irv Mulligan from 1 yard out. Jacoby and Morgan will get an 8-yard run right before the half to send JSU into the half of 23-14. Travis Terrell will get a 24-yard run to put the Tigers up 30-14 early in the third. Janalen Dupree will get a pass from Morgan from 3 yards out, put the Tigers up 37-14. Terrell will get a 33-yard run to make score 44-14. And then Simmons will catch a pass from Zy McDonald from 29 yards out to make the score 51-14. So JSU, once they came out in the second half again, um, 28 unanswered points in the second half. Teams have been unable to do anything against JSU in the second half in conference play, and they've been able to slam the door on teams in recent weeks where they kind of was leaving the door open. They starting to shut it now, and this was after a shaky start, dominant game for the rest of the game to slam the door on Valley and take a pretty strong lead in the East. Due to results of other games. Valley 16 first downs, Jackson State 28. 60 yards rushing for Valley on 29 carries, 2.1 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. 368 yards rushing for Jackson State, 55 carries, 6.7 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. 130 yards passing for Valley, 13 of 31, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. 11 of 24 for Jackson State for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Valley 190 yards of offense, 60 plays, 3.2 yards per play. No fumbles. They had 9 penalties for 89 yards. 473 yards of offense for Jackson State, 79 plays. They had 6 yards per play average. They fumbled 3 times but lost one, and they had 8 penalties for 63 yards. 34.4 yard average for Valley on 8 punts. Jackson State had 1 punt for 39 yards. Valley 2 of 13 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down, 2 of 3 in the red zone, and they had 1 sack. JSU 8 of 16 on third down, 3 of 4 on fourth down, 6 of 6 in the red zone, and they had 1 sack. This was a really efficient game for Jackson State. They were able to honestly just take care of business once they kind of got past that early Valley barrage. Williams 12 of 30 for Valley, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He was sacked once. Morgan 10 of 23 for Jackson State for 76 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, 1 sack. McDonald 1 for 1 for 29 yards and a touchdown. Caden Betts led Valley with 8 carries for 24 yards. Mulligan led JSU with 18 carries for 187 yards and 1 touchdown. Morgan 12 for 68 and a touchdown. Terrell 6 for 63 and 2 touchdowns. Rembert led Valley with 6 catches for 83 yards. Spencer led JSU with 4 for 30. Emmanuel Arenzi had 9 tackles for Valley. Dante Reed had 2 tackles for loss to lead the defense, and Arenzi had 1 sack. Jackson State was led by John Brown with 5 tackles. Jeremiah Williams had 1.5 tackles for loss to lead the defense. He also had 1 sack. Interception went to Robert McDaniel. And this is how you take care of business when you got a team that's overmatched. You probably gonna get an early barrage, but you take that punch and you throw your haymaker, and that's what JSU did. That's what they've been doing in recent weeks, and it continues for them as they march toward a East Division title. Next up on the docket is probably the upset of the day. This was the result I did not see coming, but Prairie View, strong game from start to finish, 31-12 over FAMU. The Rattlers just never really could get anything going. This was probably this was probably the best game Prairie View played all season, and they came out ready. They took care of business. They did everything that they needed to do, and they picked up a big win. They are the first non-JSU team to beat FAMU in SWAC play since the Rattlers joined the SWAC in 2021. So that's a feather in their cap. You kind of wish that this team that played in this game here had played in other games during the season, they may have still been in the race. I mean, they're um, mathematically they still have a chance at a share of the title, but they can't really win it outright. So they just this season is basically kind of on the brink, but they have been kind of an inconsistent team, and that's the theme of the conference this season: inconsistency. Teams not necessarily playing as well as they could have, and turning it on at certain points. But they led 3-0 early after Garcia Rodriguez 44-yard field goal. They led 3-0 at that point. James Burns, a 70-yard pass from Jaden Johnson, 10 to nothing at that point. James Burns is a guy who I think is a very, very explosive guy. Every touchdown he's had since he came back from his injury has been 50 yards or more. He's a guy who can really hit the big play for them, and he opens up a lot for the offense. So they led 10-0 at that point. Cameron Gillis would get a 41-yard field goal for the Rattlers with 116 left in the first, and that made the score 10-3, and that would be our halftime score after um, that would be our halftime score. Gillis will get a wait, okay. Gillis will get a field goal in the third from 28 yards out to put the Rattlers down 17-6. Jamari Gassett will get a 7-yard pass from Junior Meritovic to make the score 17-12. Conversion was no good. And then Lamaje McDowell will get 2 touchdown runs in the fourth quarter, one from 2 yards out, one from 4 yards out, to put the Panthers up 31-12 to make that the final score. FAMU 22 first downs, PV 17. Rattlers 140 yards rushing on 25 carries, 5.6 yards per carry, no touchdowns. 151 yards rushing for Prairie View, 29 carries, 5.2 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. 214 through the air for the Rattlers, 25 of 43, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Prairie View 193 yards passing, 12 of 16, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. 354 total yards of offense for the Rattlers on 68 plays, 5.2 yards per play. They fumbled once and lost one. They had 8 penalties for 95 yards. Prairie View 344 total offense, 45 plays, 7.6 yards per play, no fumbles. They had 11 penalties for 105 yards. Very highly penalized game here. Basically, 19 penalties for almost 200. Basically, 19 penalties for 200 yards. So really, really highly penalized game here. 33-yard average on 3 punts for the Rattlers. 40-yard average on 3 punts for the Panthers. FAMU 8 of 15 on third down. Didn't attempt a fourth down. They were 2 of 3 in the red zone. They had 1 sack. Prairie View 3 of 8 on third down. No fourth down attempts, 3 of 3 in the red zone, and they had 5 sacks individually. Junior Meritovic, 16 of 29 for 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 4 times. Richardson, 8 for 13 for 58 yards and 1 sack. He went down with injury. Jaden Johnson, 12 of 16 for 193 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he was sacked twice. Levante Somerset, 9 carries, 87 yards to lead the Rattlers. Chase Bingman, 7 carries, 68 yards to lead the Panthers. McDowell had 10 for 43 and 2 touchdowns. Goldie Lawrence had 7 catches for 65 yards for the Rattlers. Burns, 5 for 117 and a touchdown to lead the Panthers. Eric Horn and Jamil Sanders and Corey Collier each had 6 tackles apiece. Sanders and Horn also had 1 tackle for loss to lead the defense, and Sanders had a sack. Interception went to Collier. Prairie View was led by Terrell Coleman and Adrian Lacey with 7 tackles apiece. Fred Stokes and Chester Gefford each had 2 tackles for loss apiece. Gefford had 2 sacks to lead the defense, and interceptions went to Davis and Bird. Uh, so this was a big game for Prairie View, man. This was a nice win for them. Um, they've been playing better the last few weeks, and they may have kind of started to turn that corner. But it may be one of those too little, too late type of situations. But you take these kind of wins when you get them, and it was huge for the Panthers to continue their momentum as they move forward toward the end of the season. Grambling and Alabama State hooked up in the hole, and Grambling survived. Alabama State really had this game. They really had this game under control, and it was a reverse of what happened to Grambling last week. Where last week against Bethune, Grambling jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and Bethune kind of took that and ran away with it. This time, Bama State jumped out to a 23-10 lead in the third before Grambling scored two touchdowns in the fourth quarter to steal this game. Bama State did have a chance late in the game to take the lead, but they would ultimately miss a 28-yard field goal with 53 seconds left in the game, and that was still a deal for them. Um, it's one of those things where I think some of the execution on that last drive for Bama State wasn't quite where you wanted to be. But a 28-yard field goal, and for a college kicker is something that guy should make. Although it's a pressure kick, you just never know how things go. And they came up short, which they kind of had their issues with field goals at times. And this game kind of was what came back to bite them. But this was a good win for Grambling. They needed this win. They haven't really been playing great football the last few weeks. And, this was a game that most people, me included, gave this to Bama State without a lot of difficulty from Grambling. But Grambling they really stuck to their guns, and they were able to pull this win out. So this was a huge game for them. And this was a big win for them, and this was a big loss for Bama State. Because now they need a lot of help to kind of get themselves in the SWAC division East Division race again. So they had this in their hands. Grambling had a big fourth quarter and was able to get the win. So looking at the scoring summary, Reed Harradine kicked a 50-yard field goal for Grambling with 7:57 left in the first quarter to give the Tigers a 3-0 lead. The Hornets would get a field goal of their own from Brandon Gilliam from 45 yards out with 5 seconds left in the first quarter, tied the game up at 3. Keelan Elder had a 9-yard run for Grambling with 11:14 left in the second to make the score 10-3. Kareem Key would get the Hornets back on the board with a 4-yard run for a touchdown, tie the game up at 10. He would get another touchdown in the second quarter from 1 yard out to make the score 17-10. And then they would get a field goal at the end of the first half from 20 yards out to go up 20-10 at the half. They would get another field goal from 26 yards out with 6:22 left in the third to go up 23-20. Trey Bradford would get a 6-yard run for Grambling to go up to cut the lead to 6 at 23-17. That came with 13:47 left in the game. And then with 6:19 left in the game, Dedrick Talbert will get a 14-yard touchdown for Grambling to make the score 24-23. And like I said, Hornets would miss a late field goal, and Grambling would get the win. 17 first downs for the Hornets, 16 for Grambling. 97 yards rushing for Bama State, and that's a good rushing defensive effort for Grambling. Bama State is one of the top rushing teams in the conference, but they held them to 97 yards, held them to 32 carries and 3 yards per carry. They did have 2 touchdowns. Grambling 171 yards on the ground, 49 carries, 3.5 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. 280 yards passing for the Hornets, 16-28. No touchdowns, no interceptions. 76 yards passing for Grambling, 6-12. No touchdowns, 1 interception. 377 yards for Bama State, 60 plays, 6.3 yards per play. They had 1 fumble, and they lost it. Grambling, 247 yards of offense, 61 plays, 4 yards per play, no fumbles. Bama State, 5 penalties for 45 yards. Grambling, 7 for 62. 36.8-yard average per punt for Bama State on 6 punts. Grambling, 42.7 on 7 punts. Bama State 5 of 14 on third down. They didn't attempt a fourth down, 4 of 5 in the red zone, and they had 4 sacks. Grambling 4 of 13 on third downs, 1 for 1 on fourth down, 3 of 3 in the red zone, and they didn't have a sack. Individually, Kareem Key 16 of 28 for 280 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks. Del J. Bailey six of 12 for 76 yards for Grambling, no touchdowns, one interception. He was sacked 4 times. Marcus Harris led Bama State with 16 carries for 68 yards. Keelan Elder, 17 carries, 104 yards, and one touchdown for Grambling. Bradford 8 for 42 and a touchdown, and Talbot 9 for 42 and a touchdown. Eric Horn had one catch for 75 yards for the Hornets. Jalen Jones 2 for 63. Jalen Johnson for Grambling had two catches for 27 yards to lead the Tigers. Rico Dozier had 7 tackles, along with James Burgess and DeMarcus Cunningham. They each had 7 tackles apiece. Marcus LaPierre had 2 tackles for loss, and sacks went to LaPierre, Traquan Thomas, and DeMarcus Cunningham. They each had 1 tackle, 1 sack apiece. Interception went to Rudy John Luis, and Grambling was led by Andrew Jones with 14 tackles. He also led the Tigers with 2 tackles for loss and interception, none. So this was, like I said, this was a big game for both teams, and Grambling was able to kind of right the ship as they head into their final 2 games. They have a Thursday night game, so they got a short week as they hit the road for the final time this season. Bama State missed opportunity here. You had a chance to, make that Jackson State game basically a winner take all type of game, and now you need to win that game issue to lose that last game. So there, this was a big stumble for Bama State. There's no real way to put it other than that. This was a big stumble for the Hornets. Our final game of the day is Alcorn taking on Texas Southern. Tigers come up short, 21-42. This was a 14-14 game at the half before Alcorn was able to really turn up the heat and score 28 unanswered points before TSU scored a touchdown late in the game to make the score 42-21. Jay Williams had a 42-yard fumble recovery, scoop and score for TSU. Put Tigers with 7-0. Tyrion Warren had a 60-yard pass from Xavier Vaughn. They put the Braves on the board at 7-7. And then Vaughn will get a 4-yard run for the Braves to put them up 14-7. Jace Wilson will get a 6-yard run for the Tigers with 1:54 left before the half to make the score 14-14. 8:06 left in the third. Jacorian Sewell will get a 5-yard run, put the Braves with 21-14. Xavier Vaughn will get a 39-yard run to increase that lead to 28-14. Omarion Blakes will get an 8-yard run for the Braves to make the score 35-14. And then Anthony Williams will get a 1-yard run to make the score 42-14. And then with 1:54 left in the game, Cordell Rogers had an 11-yard pass from Jace Wilson to make the final score 42-21. TSU 13 first downs, Alcorn 26. 56 yards rushing for the Tigers, 29 carries, 1.9 yards per carry. They had one touchdown. Alcorn 298 on the ground, 56 carries, 5.3 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. 120 yards for TSU passing, 16 of 29, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. 192 yards passing for Alcorn, 14 of 23, 1 touchdown, no interception. Only 176 yards of offense for TSU. This is their second week of sub 200 yards of offense. This offense just has not been good all year, honestly. Minus their first game against TSU. Minus their first game against Prairie View and maybe the Grambling game. This offense just has not. They just have not done much of anything all season. And that's something they're definitely gonna have to take a look at as they wrap up their season. 58 plays, 3 yards per play. They had 1 fumble, didn't lose it. They had 7 penalties for 73 yards. Alcorn, 490 yards of offense, 79 plays, 6.2 yards per play. They did have 3 fumbles and lost all 3. They also had 10 penalties for 112 yards. This game could have probably been even worse if you don't have those fumbles by Alcorn. 37.5 yard average on 8 punts for TSU, 38.5 on 4 punts for Alcorn. 5 of 15 on third down for TSU, 1 for 2 on fourth down, 2 of 2 in the red zone, no sacks. 8 of 14 for Alcorn on third down, no fourth down attempts, 4 of 5 in the red zone, and they had 5 sacks. Individually, Wilson, 16 of 29, 120 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 5 sacks.
Vaughn 13 or 18 for 171 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, no sacks. Renfro led TSU with 5 carries for 32 yards. Quinn at 7 for 16. Vaughn led Alcorn with 13 carries for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sewell 13 for 69 and 1 touchdown. Williams also had 9 for 42 and a touchdown. Donald McKinney had 3 catches for TSU for 25 yards. Warren had 2 for 64 for Alcorn and 1 touchdown. Also, Blake's 3 for 55. Umar Yarrow led TSU with 20 tackles. He was a busy man. 20 tackles, 10 solo, 10 assisted. He also had 1.5 tackles for loss to lead the team, and that was it for the Tigers. Malachi Bailey led Alcorn with 7 tackles, along with Jeffrey McKelton. They both had 7 tackles. Bailey, four tackles for loss and 3 sacks. I think that's defensive player of the week honors right there. And a forced fumble. So he had a huge game for Malachi Bailey here. No interceptions. And like I said, this was a game that TSU, coming into this game, if they wanted to keep their hopes alive, they needed to win this game. And like I said, it was neck and neck for about a half, but TSU's lack of offense, I think, finally came back on them and really, was really their Achilles heel, which has been most of the season. And I think it really kind of came back and bit them in this game. And Alcorn was able to run the ball extremely well, which is what they do best. And they were able to take control of this game and blow it out of the water. So that was a big game. They kept their their hopes alive for the West Division. They still have a good chance. Southern hasn't really shown that they can, cement this thing. If Southern loses out and Alcorn, able to win out, they get the division. So they still have a really good hope in front of them. But they have to take care of business these final 2 weeks. Neither game is gonna be easy because both teams they have left are playing well. Taking a look at the Week 12 schedule. Grambling is at Alabama A&M. That's a 7 p.m. kickoff. That game is on ESPNU, and that's a Thursday night game. So we have a primetime SWAC game on Thursday night. Bethune is at Texas Southern on Saturday. Valley is at FAMU. That's a 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Pine Bluff is at Southern, 2 p.m. kickoff. Alcorn is at Prairie View, also 2 o'clock kickoff. And Jackson is at Bama State. That's a 2 p.m. kickoff. Looking at the standings real quick before we get up out of here. Jackson State continues to lead the East at 6-0, 8-2 overall. They've won 6 in a row. They can wrap up the East if they beat Bama State on Saturday. Bama State 4-2, 5-4 overall. They've lost 1. FAMU 3-2, 5-4 overall. They've lost 1. Alabama A&M 2-3, 4-5 overall. They won 1. Bethune Cookman 2-4, 2-8 overall. They lost 1. Valley 0-6, 0-10 overall. They've lost 10 in a row. Southern is sitting at 5-1 in the West, 6-4 overall. They won 2 games in a row. If they win Saturday, they basically win the West because regardless of what Alcorn does, because if they win and then they lose a game and finish tied with Alcorn at 6-2, they still win because head to head with Alcorn. So Southern win Saturday, you win the West. Alcorn 4-2, 5-5 overall. They won 1. Prairie View 3-3, 5-5 overall. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Grambling 2-4, 5-5 overall. They won 1. And Texas Southern 2-4, 3-6 overall. They've lost 2. And Pine Bluff is 2-4, 3-7 overall. They've lost 2 in a row as well. So that's gonna do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. We'll be back on Monday with a kind of maybe a little bit deeper look into the standings. I don't know how much deeper you can get, but we'll still do it anyway. Wednesday, Week 12 preview. Thursday, SWAC Smoke, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then Sunday, Week 12 recap. So with that being said, man, I'm the tour guide. I'm out. Y'all enjoy your Sunday, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.